Getting back to our top story this morning in the news, the missing persons case in Calgary turning into a triple homicide. 5-year-old Nathan O'Brien and his grandparents, Alvin and Kathy Liknes, are now murder victims. The only person of interest in this case, 54-year-old Douglas Garland, is now officially charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder. Douglas Garland formally charged just a few minutes ago. Police Chief Rick Hanson joining us now to chat more about the investigation. And I guess, Chief Hanson, right off the get-go, what was the corner turned that allowed you to change this from a missing persons investigation into now a triple homicide?
I don't think you can actually say there was a corner that was turned. In a file of this magnitude, you show up at the home and nobody's there, but there is evidence of a crime. So the work of the Forensics Crime Scenes Unit is pivotal, but that's not something that happens in 10 minutes or an hour. Those folks have to be absolutely meticulous in going over every inch of the property, looking for anything that could support a prosecution or could give information that would indicate what happened. In the meantime, you've got an investigative team that coordinates a huge number of resources as you pursue any number of leads. And as you know, we had 900 tips that came in.
Yeah.
We were following up leads relative to the forensics folks, the investigation that goes on. It involved everybody from our commercial crime section to our public order unit that was doing the searches, and everybody in between. It was a big file.
So where do you go from here? Because the murder charges have been laid now.
Right.
There are still no bodies, so there still must be quite a bit of work left for you and your staff to do.
Still tons of work.
Yeah.
Just because the charges are laid doesn't mean the investigation stops. That just means at this point in time, there's a preponderance of evidence that's been built up slowly, brick by brick by brick, to support the charge, to support now the firmly held belief that it is a homicide investigation that we're dealing with. But we will continue to pursue tips that come in, not only tips as to perhaps where we may find the bodies, but also tips as to what may have, what other evidence we could uncover that could lead to even a more successful prosecution or add more to the prosecution.
Sure. I know that it's standard protocol that you would obviously inform the family first before you make an announcement to journalists and media. How did they take it when you first talked to them?
You know, in cases like this, the family, as we did, you always have hope. But once you sit down with a family and you tell them that, you know, we're sorry, but the evidence is such now that we believe that it is a homicide investigation we're pursuing, we know that what happens is that you take that glimmer of hope away. And it's absolutely devastating for the family. Understandably, you know, the number of people that have been devastated, but even people in the community itself, and I mean Calgary. Everybody, so many people were hopeful that this would end with us being able to identify a location where we'd find the family.
Yeah. Do you walk the family through saying, you know, we have this, we have that, we have, you know, we have A, B, C, and D, and that's why we're concluding E? Or do you kind of save that from them and just kind of tell them straight up saying, look, based on what we have, this is where we think this should go?
Our investigators establish a relationship with the family right up front. It's important for a number of reasons. They have tons of questions. They have the right to know how we're proceeding. They have the right to know how the investigation and the search is going. But by the same token, we have to be careful. We're not going to give them all the detail of the investigation because you can't put that at risk neither. So it's in developing that relationship that the investigator has with the family that there's a trust bond, that they know that they can relate information they have, they can ask questions, but when the news is bad, there's no way you can change horrific news.
How are the investigators doing? I know I was reading that there are 200 people who have been working off and on this case since the disappearance. It involves a 5-year-old little boy. I mean, it must be tough.
You know, our investigators, our officers, it's not work, it's a commitment. And especially when it's a family involved, especially when there's a young child involved. The primary investigators, the investigative team, have been working nonstop, 14 days straight, overtime on many of those days, well beyond an average day. The work that was done by even our search teams going through the dump there, you know, where an officer would be part of a team, lift up his mask, throw up, and then get back to searching the dump.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a kind of a commitment that indicates that these officers want to do as much as they can to either, at the time, try to locate something, some piece of evidence that either direct us towards where we could hopefully find the family at some point in time, or now towards a piece of evidence that could help with the prosecution. So they get tired, but the commitment is that we have to move forward, and we will continue to move forward. We're not going to give up. We will continue to pursue every lead and every investigative avenue, because at some point in time we'd like to have closure by locating the missing people.
So we can have a funeral for the family. All right, thank you very much. Police Chief Rick Hanson, thanks for your time this morning. This is a case obviously gripping not only the city of Calgary, but people across the country.